paper, scissors project. I'm going to start with level 1 in the project, and the first task that I ask you to complete is to ask the user for input. Do you choose rock, paper, or scissors, and then assign that input to a variable. So the way that you do this is to set your variable, and I'm going to set that to user equals prompt. Do you choose rock, paper, or scissors? Now, in that user variable will be the choice that the user chooses, either rock, paper, or scissors. Now, one thing that, so the next thing I want to do is assign a random rock, paper, or scissors to the computer player. And in order to do that, I use an array with a random number generator. So I'm going to do var comp equals, actually, let's create the array first. Var, let's just call it R, equals rock, paper, scissors. Okay? So now, var comp is going to be equal to ARR, right, the name of our array, and then bracket notation, and then I want a random number between 0 and 2. So I'll get ARR0, ARR1, or ARR2, which will give me the thing I'm looking for here. So I'm going to get a random number, and I'm going to do this as math.floor, math.random, right, times ARR.length. Now, the reason I use ARR.length and not just 3 is because if I were to add more choices to the array, if we were to be playing, for example, rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, like in the Big Bang Theory, we could add those elements to the array and the random number generator would still work because it's basing its random number on the length of the array. In this case, the length is 3. Okay, so now the computer player can choose something and the user can choose something. So I'm going to test this out real quick by console logging the comp player, and I'm just going to run this. Okay, so my prompt works, and the computer player chose scissors. Let's just make sure that the computer player chooses something different each time, and it does. Okay, so that's something that you ought to do as you're programming. If you get a few lines in and you just want to make sure that what you've just written works properly, just run it a couple of times and put a little bit of test data in, and you'll be just fine. Now, one thing that I would like to do here is to take this user variable and deal with some weirdness. So what would happen if my user were to type in rock with capital R? If I were to compare this to the string, lowercase string ROCK, it would actually compare to that as false, and that's not really what I want. Same thing if the user were to put in something like this. I don't know why they would do that, but if they were to do that, it would evaluate as false. But what I can do is I can try to normalize the user input in order to match what I have in my array. In order to do that, I use the user variable, and I say user is equal to user.toLowerCase. Now, what this toLowerCase does is it takes the user's input and it takes everything down to lowercase. So let's just test that for a second. We're going to do console log user, and we're going to run that. And I'm going to type that ROCK with weird capitalization into the prompt box. And now when I press OK, notice that it prints out that word all to lowercase. Okay, so now I've normalized my input. So the next step is to compare the user's choice to the computer's choice. And for that, I want some nested if statements. So I want to say if user is equal to computer, then I want to say it's a tie. I'm going to console log. Actually, let's alert this. That way it'll come up in an alert box rather than in the console. It'll be more fun that way. Else if user equals scissors and computer equals paper, or user equals rock and computer equals scissors, or user equals, got to make those strings. Okay, or user equals, let's see, I've done scissors, rock, paper. Sorry, I made the wrong thing string here. Oh, what am I thinking? All right, there we go. Comp equals scissors. There. Now we're a string. User equals paper, and comp equals rock. Now, if you'll notice, what I've done here is I've put in all of the user win conditions, right? And I actually have to enclose those and statements with parentheses because I want those and statements to be evaluated first before the or statement is evaluated. So this is a little bit of complex logic here, but what this does is it checks to see if the user has won, and it will alert computer chose plus comp plus period you chose plus user plus period you win. Let's capitalize that. Okay, so it's really helpful when you're playing a game to print out to your user a little bit of information about the game. So if the computer chose something and that caused the user to lose or win, you want to tell the user what the computer chose. You want to repeat back to them what they chose in order to make that work. So I'm going to now take care of the other condition. So we're going to do an else if statement here. And basically, the other condition is the opposite of the condition that I used for my first if statement. So in this case, if the computer chose scissors and the user chose paper, the computer chose rock and the user chose scissors, and the computer chose paper and the user chose rock, now you can see that in this case the computer would win. And so I'm going to use my same alert statement. Alert computer chose, you lose. Okay. And then I also want to handle a case where none of this actually works. And if the user were to put in something random into the prompt box, something wouldn't work the way that it's supposed to. And so I want to have an else statement. And I want to alert, you didn't guess anything. You didn't guess either rock, paper, or scissors. Okay? So now I've got a fully functional rock, paper, scissors game here. And so what I'm going to do here is run this. We're going to play rock, paper, scissors a couple of times, and we'll see if it works. So I'm going to choose paper. The computer chose rock. I chose paper. I win. So that worked the way we want it to. I'm going to choose scissors. Computer chose paper. I chose scissors. I win. I'm going to choose, let's choose paper again. All right. Let's choose rock this time. All right, I crushed the scissors. And now you could add other messages to this. You can use other kinds of data structures in order to have special messages for each one of the things that the user or the computer might pick. And those are things that we can add to the game later. But these are, this is basically the most simple version of the rock, paper, scissors game. Now, if you do level 2 of the rock, paper, scissors project, you can try to add a couple of other things to this game. One thing that you could add is a way to keep score. You could also try to do a best 2 out of 3. And in order to do that, you would create a while loop with a win condition, and then keep track of the number of times that the user or the computer's won, and then print that out to the alert box. So there are lots of different things you can do, and I would encourage you to try to do those extensions to the project. You could even create rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock if you wanted to. So there you go. That's how to create a basic version of the rock, paper, scissors game in JavaScript.